Hello everyone, it is time to get to the main weapons part of the tier list. Now, of course, we are not going to be doing these in order like we did for the subs or the specials, but we are going to be ranking every single weapon. Today, we're going to be starting with all of the low tiers, bottom tiers, and mid tiers, which sounds like a lot, but we're going to be flying through these weapons. So, this is going to be a Splat Zones only list. Let's get started. Subscribe if you enjoy, and let's see which of these weapons have the potential to go higher and which are probably going to be here forever. Alright, at our very bottom of the list tier of weapons, things that you'll probably never see in a competitive setting ever. First off, we have the Neo-Splushamatic, a weapon that struggles to get in with a sub and special that don't really help it do that. Along with that, it's just not a very synergistic kit, it's very weak, and the main weapon is just kind of okay right now. It has good object damage, and if it gets in, it's annoying, but it has a better kit for that. The Vanilla Nova goes down here. If you enjoy doing nothing but tickling the enemies without any way to possibly ever kill them, this is the gun for you. While very fun and does have a location identity in terms of having both sensor and whale, there are just seriously weapons that do that better. You don't really need both the sub and special, and there are much better sensor options. The main weapon is pretty damn weak, and the special is okay with it synergy-wise, but not enough to carry it by any means. Vanilla Carbon! While the weapon is okay as a main, like it's kind of solid, up close it's a little bit threatening, this has another kit that pretty much is better than it in every single way, shape, or form, and 170 caster does not save this. Both of the big swigs are going to go into this tier. I really do wish I could see this higher, but yes, even in zones, even if I think it's probably the best weapons in this tier, these weapons are horrible at fighting. In a fighting meta, they are just going to get ran at, they are going to get shot down, and even if we ignore all of that, they have awful sub-weapons, making them some of the worst weapons to have without map control ever. The big swig meta will have to wait until third kits. Custom Gootuber is a very funny weapon they put in the game, where they took Gootuber, one of the weakest main weapons in the game, due to a very slow charge time and just kind of mediocre stats on everything, except ironically enough the tap shot paints, and they gave it a Fizzy Bomb, which gave Gootuber players hope, and then proceeded to slap that thing with Ultra Stamp, which is Ultra Stamped. I've already talked about it. Unfortunate fate for the custom Gootuber. Next weapon we have is the Vanilla Umbrella. One of the weaker weapons in the game, still has some solid, useful utility in terms of being able to shield opponents, but with some weak damage, it's going to struggle to kill. It's got a Sprinkler, which isn't going to do a lot, and Tri-Strike is awful for this weapon. If you pop a Tri-Strike in any relevant Brella position, you're just going to get shot down. This is a weapon that wants to be in weapons' faces and shielding. You do not want a special that takes away your ability to fight, and it does not have anywhere near the level of painting to play off of Tri-Strike. Undercover Brella has the only gimmick of going for slider zones cheese, and even if we were to have that gimmick, there is a weapon in the game called the Dread Ringer, which pretty much gets rid of every other slider cheese weapon in the game in terms of quality. So there is really no reason to use it. It is absolutely horrible at fighting. Its sub-weapon is whatever for it, and it has the worst special in the entire game. I'm gonna rank both clashes here. I debated having V-Clash a tier higher, but nobody wants to play this weapon, let's be real. It has an annoying outside blast radius, which is really all it has, and S-Blast has the same radius. The kits are both pretty okay, but this is one of the worst main weapons in the entire game. It's seen pretty much no competitive use. Maybe V-Clash is the best weapon in this tier, maybe it's better than Big Swig, I don't know. Clash Neo's kit is a bit okay for zones with 170 chumps, but yeah, nothing gonna really boost this any higher. Finally, we have the brand new weapon to this tier, something introduced in this season, the Reflux Deco! This kit is depressing, it is more zones cheese. If you want to play a Reflux, just play the other one, it's got a significantly better kit. And I really just don't see this one seeing any competitive usage outside of maybe Turf War, which is not what we're talking about. And even then, there's another Reflux kit, so yeah. Definitely going to the bottom to me. Next up on this tier list is we have weapons with a little bit more reason to be used, some things that could be made a lot better with a few buffs, but stuff that right now we really don't see much use of. Vanilla Splushamatic. So this is Sploosh, but with a more synergistic, even if still weak kit, so it's a little bit better than the earlier one, since it does play to the weapon's mobility strength, and Hammer can still be very annoying with the ability to pop up in more random locations. Custom Junior is a little bit better than the Nova in terms of the locate everything same gun, but it still has a very weak special, and the main weapon can struggle a lot in fighting. Both arrow sprays are here. We have one with Fizzy Bomb and Reef Slider spam, and another one with Booyah Bomb spam. I could see this being debated for maps like Humpback Zones, but even then we pretty much never see it, so I don't really think this is that good. Vanilla L3 got 190p, so it's more of a crab spammer, but it's still a weapon that really did not need to get a curling bomb, a weapon that's not the greatest at fighting, even if not bad, and purely spamming crab isn't going to get you anywhere when you have Neo Stamper and Splash-O-Matic in the game. Next up are both the H3s. If there's any weapon that I hope gets improved on this list, it's these. Maybe shave off some of the end lag, it would be cool. Vanilla H3 has a very interesting kit, giving you both point sensor utility and Tacticooler, even if it doesn't have a lot of synergy with the main gun. Considering how broken Tacticooler is right now, this could have a lot of potential as a support if it had better mobility. Unfortunately, it does not. The other kit is really good at holding down the space it has, but not good at literally any other quality, so unfortunately it's not much better. The main weapon is still just way too slow for this meta. Next up is the Crack-On Roller. I think this weapon is absolutely horrible when you are locked out of the map. It is incredibly difficult to get in and do anything. If you run a comp around it and get in, it can be annoying setting up beacons and doing Kraken things on top of the roller things, but realistically, every other time I see a different kit you should be playing, and we'll talk about that later. Gold Dynamo goes here too. I think the vanilla kit is a little bit better for when you want a Dynamo niche. If you're going to pick it for something like Humpback or Flounder, you might as well have the one that's cooler, but Chumps at least does have solid synergy in terms of being able to paint the zone, and if they ever buff Dynamo's paint to actually be pretty good, I could see this being a very annoying zones weapon in the future, but currently, they do not care about Dynamo, so it goes here. Vanilla Gootuber is the Gootuber if it had a better kit, which is cool, but you still can't spam missiles because it has a cooldown, and missile spam isn't as good as it used to be, so that was really its only claim to fame. So, Hydra got some decent buffs, but I still think it's in D tier. It's like very niche for maps like Crab Leg, for example. It's still going to just get forced to move by too many specials. It's still a little bit too slow in my opinion, and while the kit is solid, I don't think it's enough to make it a little bit higher. Maybe if it gets a little bit more buffs, I could see it being more of a niche pick, but right now, unfortunately, even though I really like this weapon, I don't think I can see it much higher. I guess I could put both the Dapples in D tier. This is another one where you would try to justify it for really short-range maps, but I don't think the vanilla kit gets cooler enough. I think its sub-weapon sucks, and the other kit has Reef Slider. Honestly, pretty solid main weapons, all things considered, and these things just kind of need to have a kit that works for them, and so far we are 5 for 5 in that being no. It's okay, guys. 6th time is the charm. I'm gonna put Sorella Undercover Umbrella here. This is not like Gunder. Torp still makes it a step up above the vanilla kit, don't get me wrong, but it's still Undercover Umbrella in a game about fighting and stuff like that is just not really good for Undercover right now. Please buff the main weapon a bit. Please give it a third kit that has Tacticooler because we need more good cooler options in the game, and that's the best chance it has. Cooler would give it the chance to assist farm, which could be huge. Unfortunately, I don't think Screen really does that. I don't think its combo is that useful, and I just don't think it's really a special you want something focused on spamming it. Hey though, we did beat out the vanilla kit, so that's what matters. Both the Lunas go here too. Once again, we have our but on short range maps, this could maybe be okay copium, except the main weapons here just really aren't as worth using. I think S-Blast 91 is better in pretty much every situation you would consider running these weapons with a significantly better kit. The weapon can still kill a little bit faster, and it can definitely be very threatening in the hands of a player who knows what they're doing with it, but I don't think Zones is the mode where this really has its niche. Especially short range blasters need to have a lot more to them to see use on a mode that is based around painting a zone. I'm gonna put Vanilla S-Blast here. Yes, in theory, it's not that bad because the main weapon is pretty decent, but also now it has a kit with Burst Bomb and Booyah Bomb. Do not pick this one. Pick the other one. The other one is so much better. Don't do it to yourself. I did it for 6 months. It's not fun. You can be free. You can have a weapon kit. You don't have to do this to yourself. Paintbrush is like barely in this tier to me. I think that Paintbrush is one of the worst weaknesses in the game for a weapon based on fighting and movement, which is startup, and its windup is awful. Curling Bomb is actually nice on it because you get to skip that windup and it's a bit cheaper, but you have Wavebreaker, which is just one of the weakest specials in the game. I think the other kit is just a little bit better. The ink efficiency isn't great either, so it has a ton of downtime. It's a weapon with more flaws than strengths to make it worth it. The Vanilla Bow kit is definitely the worst of the two when it comes to zones. It has a little bit bit of synergy, but Stringer is an incredibly unreliable and difficult main weapon that is mostly good at shredding objects, and unfortunately there aren't a lot of them right now. In this meta where everyone is faster than ever, Stringer has been struggling more and more despite getting some buffs, and I really think the other kit is the only thing that gives it a chance to see some use right now. Ends up 89! This is one I could see being higher if someone feels like pushing it, but nobody really feels like doing it, and I kind of understand that because the other NZAP kit is like a top 5 weapon in the entire game. This weapon is okay at spamming paint and chumps, it fights alright, its kit is alright, the special is whatever, but works fine for zones, we just don't really see a lot of it. Again, in theory, it could go higher, but no one really cares to play this weapon, and so I can't really put it much higher. Vanilla Pro isn't too bad since they buffed this weapon's paint by a little bit, and it's 180p, and Dart is a bit better since launch. It's definitely been in a bit better of a spot, but I think it's got another kit that's just a little bit better. I guess if you want a mid-range crap weapon that isn't Splatana Stamp or Neo for some reason, you can pick it, but that's, like, your best argument, I guess. Anarchy Nova is Nova if it had a kit that were a little bit better. It is very good at spamming Jetpack, but against very aggressive teams, having a Nova that's not going to help us much at fighting will be felt over the course of a top-level match, and that's basically why we don't see it as much anymore. L3D takes the okay weapon of L3 and gives it a sub with perfect synergy, giving all L3 players around the world hope, only to give it Ultra Stamp. If Ultra Stamp ever got buffed, this kit could be very interesting, but until then, I will just miss the kit that had Inkjet instead, and think about how interesting and cool it would be in this game. So, like with the fate of H3, it's damn, this would be really cool if it were a meta weapon in this game, but unfortunately it is not. Just in this case, it's more the kit's fault than the main weapon. Yeah, Flings of Use really tanked off a cliff. It's a bit more okay at fighting than some of the other missile weapons. You do have Horizontal Flick, but Horizontal Flick is still a very undertuned flick, spamming paint for missiles on something you can't spam as much because 210 plus cooldown just isn't really as good as it used to be. Maybe a Flings player could do things with it, but again, it's one of those weapons where we really just have not seen it since the start of the game. Squiffer is actually a pretty solid main weapon with a pretty decent kit. I just think the synergy it has makes it a little bit awkward to fit in comps. I think if you're playing Squiffer, especially in a cooler meta, you are being really aggressive, going for these insane kill streaks and playing under ledges, and unfortunately, I don't think this is the aggressive kit to really allow it to fill that role. I think a sub or special that could help it with more continuation so it can get a kill and play off it is great, whereas right now this weapon needs to just never miss a shot to be able to get major momentum, which has not been reliable enough to work. Give it some special that can help it increase its kill potential and get more shrieks, and I think we could see this weapon more in competitive play. Is V-Try really that much worse? I mean, it's Try with an Inkjet. Yes, Fizzy Bomb literally doubles this weapon's paint and therefore like doubles its special output. This is a close range niche only, and it's really not that worth it. Please add a good close range Inkjet option into the game, or buff Brella, please. I'm gonna put both the blobs here. Originally, I debated having these a bit higher, but the more I see this meta, the more I think it's whatever for it. There's not really that many people who play it. It struggles at being ran down. It struggles hard against many of the specials in the game. Jetpack and Crab Tank are just so good at dealing with it. And while Blob's kits are okay, I think it would really need to get something insane in terms of its kit in order to see some use. It is very annoying paint and damage spam at a distance that has the potential to maybe win, but is currently more annoying than strong. Even sadder than the blobs, though, is Explo. Explo, like blobs, really struggle into specials. I do think you get a bit better of a main weapon because the ability to 90 someone behind a corner from really far away or paint an objective is solid, but I don't know, Explo's paint in this game really just doesn't feel as insane as it did in Splatoon 2, and I think it really needs a kit that can help it live against the other specials if we're not going to buff the main weapon. Like, the kit is solid, but it doesn't really help it when it's getting jetpacked or crabbed or zooked, which is the problem this weapon has. Glugadoolies feels pretty decent to me. This is another weapon I can see being a tier higher if a one-trick gets a good result with it. Like, it's solid, it's still the K-Gal kit, it's very annoying, it cannot be a K-Gal because it's not going to spam a billion Booyah Bombs, but it is still a weapon that can kill you very quickly, has very annoying matchups to deal with, and a relatively solid kit. I think it has the potential to mess up some comps depending on where it's played. It has some interesting options, and if it's buffed a little bit more, I could see it being higher. Next up are both the Rapids here. I don't really like either of these kits that much. I think Mist on Long Rapid just isn't that great, and I think Mine for it is pretty bad on Lockout. It at least gets Tri-Strike a bit faster now since a buff, which is like, okay. Both of these can get specials that work alright with them. I think long rapid's positioning doesn't synergize as well with VAC, and I think having both a sub and special that don't deal extra damage make it a bit harder to get kills with the weapon, but like, they're still solid main weapons. I think V-Rapid's kit, on the other hand, has the problem of Tri-Strike is a special that struggles at being rushed down. Rapid is a weapon that struggles at being rushed down. Stacking these together can lead to big problems. And it's not like Firefin where it has a wall plus sits even further back away to be able to deal with it. So I think they're just okay. I would put Inkbrush Nouveau down here as well. I think Inkbrush Nouveau's kit is just kind of whatever. This kit did have Mine and Baller in Splatoon 2, which did work, but that was more because having a light baller, the good version of that special, worked pretty well with what Inkbrush wanted to do, and while Hammer against some comps does act as that continuation annoying thing behind your team, when you're going against things like shooters, dualies, and splatlings, it doesn't really help as much. I forgot to rank this when mentioning the shooters, but Vanilla 96 Gal I think is here. Its kit is kind of whatever, which is not great for 96. It does really need a kit to help it given its horrid RNG. However, it can still get a lot of ink vacs. I think on some maps it's okay as kind of this very weird V-Jet. I don't think it's as worth using compared to Vanilla Jet, which we'll talk about later. But like, it's okay. I think it works alright depending on the map. It can be useful for some really strong vacuum stages, and Sprinkler plus the main weapon is more than capable of getting enough of them for this weapon to work sometimes. Paintbrush Nouveau has all the main weapon issues I mentioned before, and now has a sub that doesn't help its mobility, but the bright side is you now have 190p 10 missiles, which is like pretty okay. Yeah, that's really all I gotta say about this weapon. It still needs the main weapon to be like way better. So this is the tier I think the other bow goes in. It's like a little bit better because it can paint pretty well by having both Sprinkler and Super Chump, so it does allow it to just kind of output some insane paint numbers, which helps a little bit more when we're talking about zones, but it is still a bow and has all the problems I mentioned prior. So Dreadringer I think goes in this tier, and Dreadringer is kind of interesting because I think the main is actually pretty good, and it has a sub that's solid for it, and since the paint buff it can actually use. A lot of people forget that this weapon can get like 2,000 paint a game sometimes. It's pretty ridiculous just how much this weapon turfs while being solid pressure. And because of that, I think this is your best slider cheese weapon. It paints both well and far away enough so you can actually get them and then use them to cheese zone over and over again. However, this is much better of a strategy in solo queue than it is in competitive play, where this tier list actually matters. I think this weapon could potentially be good when it has a better kit. It still has problems, of course. It's very slow. It doesn't really have the instant one-shot direct of something like Range Blaster to make up for its speed, and of course it has a good bit of downtime, but I'd say it's one of the more solid weapons at this point in the list. I think Bucket Deco goes here as well, mostly because Zipcaster is pretty good right now, like I talked about in my specials tier list, and on top of that works pretty well with Bucket as a whole. That being said, it is so hard to make up for Dart, man. This weapon takes forever to get its special, which means it takes forever to get in, and Dart's just really whatever. Maybe 170 Zip could be a weird way to buff it, but I think they somehow have to make Dart a better weapon just to kind of help this thing. It would be really cool if it was good, but I just can't see it any higher than this, unfortunately. Vanilla Dynamo Roller is basically what I talked about Gold Dynamo. You use it for maps like Humpback and Flounder, but its kit is a bit better here since it also covers your cooler weapon. I think Vimy goes here. This is a pretty solid main weapon with a pretty solid sub, but Stamp really has no synergy with this, especially when being compared to L3D, where it does actually have decent synergy. So yeah, I don't have much to say about this. I think the other mini kit is just way better for what you would run mini for right now, even if it's not perfect, so I don't really have a whole lot to say for this one. That is all of our low tiers and bottom tiers for Splatoon 3. As we got higher in the list, we got weapons with a bit more potential, but I think we need some changes as a whole for things to get a little bit better. Unfortunately, there is still a decent bit of weapons that are a little bit too low, so you can kind of see what I mean where I say I do think the amount of buffs we get needs to go up. I would love to see more of these weapons going higher, but all in all, not too bad for how many weapons are down here, so it could be a whole lot worse. Let me know what you think about these weapons, which ones are your secret high tiers, and I'll see you all next time.